So, hi Vera, thanks for joining me in this
Hi,
today.
Jeremy. It's
Yeah,
lovely, and I'm very much looking forward. I guess
it-
it's going to be a ball.
yeah, it's gonna be something. We'll figure it out exactly what it'll be or become all at the same time. I noticed I don't have my tablet, which is where I got my notes about what we talked about last time, but we'll figure it out, I think. So to kick things off, why don't we start with a little bit of a check-in, right? Who am I? Let's deal with identity and introduce yourself. What is it that you want to explore here in this call today? And why is that that concept, that understanding, exploration, why is that topic important to you? And then what I'll do is I'll reflect you, and then I'll do my turn, you'll reflect me, and then we'll just take a minute or so of silence to sort of land and find the space.
Great. Sounds good.
Cool. So kick us off.
All right. So, who am I? I really, I find that always a puzzling question, because I could tell you a million things and I could tell you categories, but I'm not up to that right now. So I just go with my intuition and say, I'm that easily to be put into an enthusiastic mood human being, in very curious, very often thinking about why are we doing the stuff we do? Should we continue doing the stuff we do the way we do them? And in that light, maybe to put a little bit category into it, in that light, I also started my own business, actually during the pandemic, which I'm still figuring out whether this was a good idea or not, which is Dare to Imagine. And with that, I actually help individuals and organizations to really understand what is the time that we are living in and what do we want to change and how can we change that if we want to change it. What else? I'm incredibly interested into cultures and cultural differences. I originally come from Germany and now living in the Netherlands in Amsterdam, and having had the chance and privilege to travel quite a lot and to get to know a few cultures, and that even more makes me curious about why we do stuff also differently on different parts of the world,
Right.
What chances there are to learn from each other and to kind of help each other to look behind all the constructs that we've been creating to live in our societies. Which brings me to the topic which I remember that we wanted to explore today, and to get behind the constructs of number one, I think I remember it was fear and which role that actually plays in our society and in our behavior. Like, we don't have to only put it on the collective scale, we can also put it on the individual scale. Why we let
darn, I was hoping to hide in that abstraction. But okay.
Why do we get trapped so often in that, and then obviously do make decisions from a place where nobody thinks that this is a good place to make decisions from, and maybe also get behind a little bit the idea, and let's see whether we can figure out whether there's any connection or it's not connected, behind the patriarchy. I remember that was another topic. And a third topic, and who knows whether we can relate this one to it, was our money system and how we've been creating it.
Yeah, the relationship to money as well.
Yeah, exactly. And why is that so important to me? Why is that triggering me so much? I guess on the kind of highest meta level that at least I can access right now, I feel that we are living in really interesting times, not only since Corona and not only since Black Lives Matter, but actually there's a whole lot of stuff going on in terms of change on so many different levels. And I actually would call that or name that, even though I'm not sure whether this is the right term, that we're in the midst of a paradigm shift. And I think these three topics, the patriarchy and asking, is that really what we want to continue? And what is it actually, you know, and what was maybe also good about it or is good about it? And the fear and making decisions from that place of fear, and also how that is related to money, has all something to do. It might be kind of hooks which allow us to navigate. If we come behind them and understand what we're doing and become a little bit more aware and conscious about how this is all influencing us, we actually have hooks to kind of steer into a different direction if we want that. And that I find fascinating.
Awesome. So there's a lot of good stuff in there, right? So Vera, if I hear sort of who you are and what you bring into this space, I instantly connect to, oh yeah, you're easily enthused, right? Easily excited. And I go, that's what makes our interaction so much fun, right? You get excited, I get excited, and then we're in this really fun space together. Okay. And a lot of curiosity and also a different thing than sort of curiosity is sort of an inquisitiveness, right? To dig behind the cause, like that why question, to not just a single loop of let's deal with this, but let's loop around the loop to dig into the root cause. And also then this space of entrepreneurship that you bring in, right? Of exploring the possibility of creating something new, especially in this type of, in this crazy context that we're sort of in, right? And then what do we want to explore, right? So the topic of fear, patriarchy, and then money and our relationship to all these things. I can already sort of feel a through line in this, right? So it's interesting that we sort of bring all of them into the space, right? Rather than just sort of pigeonholing ourselves into one. Let's see how we can tie these things around and relate them to each other. And then why that's important is because you bring in this awareness of this sort of paradigm shift, right? This big transition between one thing and the other, and maybe sort of linking these concepts to what's been successful about them and what it has the opportunity to sort of shift and change, and where the sort of boundaries that we are probably going to be exploring, right? Did I get you?
I think you did a marvelous job. Yes.
Cool. All right. So who am I? I'm Jeremy. So what do I sort of bring into this space? Yeah. So I'm aware right now. I guess we're going to I'm going to blur the lines of the boundaries, right? Because I have a lot of thoughts about all of these topics, and like I said, a sort of unifying frame to put in that binds them together. And what I bring into this space is some degree of apprehension, right? Some degree of fear that my thoughts might crowd the space in some way between us, so there is already some apprehension, some fear that I like, that my patriarchy is going to dominate the space, right? And step on the openness to add your insight to these topics, to my insight. So as I make space for that, who am I? Yeah, I wonder. Let's find out. So, and what do I want to explore? I think that it's sort of touched on. I brought it into some element, right? What I really want to explore is also this process of how do I engage with you as a person, as an individual, to activate your insight, to augment my insight, so that we can both have a bigger, fuller, richer understanding of this world and this transition that we sort of both recognize that we're in, from different, totally different spaces, genealogies, geographies, backgrounds, gender identities, ethnical, whatever you want to call it, right? And why is that important to me? Because I have been trying to sort of synthesize the universe in my own brain for like almost 40 years now, and I'm certainly getting putting lots of stuff together, and I still am overwhelmed by the scope of trying to make sense of all of the world all by myself. So I really want to practice this this ability to link our minds together, right, in productive ways.
Oh, I love it. Okay, let's go for it.
All right. Cool. So can you give that? Can you reflect me?
Sure. So what I understand is, number one, something that I recognized is, who am I? I wonder. Let's figure that out. And you coming from a space of having spent 40 years on that planet, trying to figure out what the world is and what these different concepts are and how this is all working together. And now coming to that space where you realize, maybe I don't have to figure it out all by myself, but let's do that together in a conversation. And let's even, I would add here, let's even not only do that between us, but have other people, give other people the possibility to step into that as well, and to become part of that sense-making process to some extent.
Yeah.
And exploring these actually a little bit fear-provoking, or at least what was the apprehension creating
apprehension
topics in a way that maybe help us make the connections between things and make sense between things. Did I get you right, or is there more to add in that sense?
No, that's beautiful. So you bring in something like, so the dialogue's already started, right? So you bring in something that I don't know if I articulated, but is absolutely so spot on the nose, right? Which is also my desire to bring other people into this exchange and into this sort of sense-making process. So no, thank you so much for that. You got me. You're adding me on top of me. So perfect. So let's just take a minute or so to, find your breath, close your eyes, do what you want to do, and, settle into the space, and then we'll kick things off. All right.
All right.
Cool.
Can I jump in and make right away a meta remark?
Hit me.
This is I did not know that you would at the beginning kind of make that introduction reflecting each other, and now this kind of intentional pause kind of, and I love it, and I want to make you a big compliment on that, because this is exactly what we could do more of, in terms of not jumping right into the topic and trying to figure out stuff, as we've probably, or I've been at least doing a large part of my life, like get the shit done and then we can relax, but to this, I had to, when I was sitting and kind of sinking in, I had to reflect on something that we do in the ballroom. Are you a dancer?
Yes and no, but tell me about what are you talking about?
So I've been like a large a larger part of my life, I've been kind of dancing different ballroom dances, like at the beginning, really like this waltz and Latin, blah, blah, blah. And then it was salsa. And in the last, I think already 8 years or something like that, it's tango. And all of them together have that, before you kind of start to dance, there's one thing that you're going to do, and that is different in terms of the different traditions, but you invite someone, you invite him or her, you kind of ask, can I have that dance with you? Right. And you have a quick kind of small talk in order to see whether you can align with each other. And then, especially with the tango, before you start, you, number one, adjust your posture in front of each other, and you breathe, and then you start with the embrace, and only when you have found each other in the embrace, then you start to dance. And that's exactly what we did right now.
Oh, cool. Cool.
So
there we go. So we're in the tango.
Maybe. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And you know, in terms of, you've been already saying, so if we go right into the fear topic, you know, you've been already saying, you know, like a little bit, like if someone would come to you and say, like, you know, I'm a little bit nervous and I'm not the most professional dancer in that dance that we intend to do with each other, but would you still dare to have a dance with me? And that is a kind of creating a frame or a framework that makes it safe for us. I know with whom I'm going to kind of have the dance together. You have kind of been transparent and also maybe relieving yourself from that, I could be judged, because now I could judge or I cannot judge or whatever, you know, it's up to me. But we've been creating that safe space where you see, she's dancing with me now. It seems to be okay, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's working, right? Despite that anxiety that's sort of there. Yeah, so there's that space for, so it's so funny, right? So there's that space for courage in the face of fear, right? And so, you know, I'm pretty explicit about my values: curiosity, care, and courage, right? So the creating the space to take care of the thing that's there, and how do we step beyond that sort of boundary of limitation, right? There's that space for courage. Yeah, and then we can jam. We can see what's happening, right? Get into the exploration. So thank you very much, Vera. That means a lot to me. Thanks.
Yeah. And you know, maybe you want to kind of reflect with me on that, because I'm feeling, you know, maybe also in connection with paradigm shift, blah, 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 all that kind of good stuff, about, well, I don't know when Agile Scrum actually started, but it's actually only one new kind of way of trying to figure out how we can collaborate better with each other, that brings in much more these structures. We know each other from the Liberating Structures user group, right? This is another thing. Yeah. If I think about kind of the tradition, would you say, where I feel most at home, which is Appreciative Inquiry, that's doing exactly the same. It's so much more, we're getting much more into that acknowledgement that, you know, we are human beings here. So I'm not just this little wheel that's kind of turning around in the big machinery of our company, but I have feelings, you know, I have the need to connect. I have the need of you kind of acknowledging that it's okay that I'm afraid. I have the need that we figure out how we can work out this together. And in that sense, I'm actually a little bit kind of hopeful. And at the same time, I think where there's so much still to do, that we're kind of including a dimension now also at work that allows us to at least acknowledge, there are feelings and there's fear, you know, one of the feelings or emotions being fear, and allowing us that's to deal with it. However, at the same time, and this is what I mean with there's still so much to do, we're by doing that, we are realizing right now, me including, that we have so little practice in that, you know. It's still so new to do that, and it feels so vulnerable, and I'm still figuring out whether, you know, you might be the one with whom I can have that conversation, or whether you are actually going to push me away because this is overwhelming you or whatever, which I think a lot of times happens as well. So probably my question is, number one, do you have a similar observation like I have? And maybe also something that you can share in that respect. And number two, how could we actually, number two, is it necessary to kind of include more of these things in your opinion, or is it kind of whatever this softy psychological blah blah blah, you know?
Oh, yeah.
In that
All
sense,
these feelings.
you know, get the real stuff done. And number three, how, if number two would be answered with a yes, how can we get there, like individually and in our organizations, and maybe as a whole society, in our understanding of what is real and what is important and what is necessary in order to work and live well together?
There's a lot of good stuff in there, Vera. Man, you're really teeing this thing up well. So I really like to come in from this space of agile, right? So my sort of working theory about agile is that agile is actually the wrong thing. However, it's a good entry point to get to the right thing. So agile does a lot of right things for the wrong reasons, right? Because, you know, the Agile Manifesto, let's not be too presumptuous, right? The Agile Manifesto, the establishment of 4 values and 12 principles that a bunch of white guys came up with in Utah in 2001, right? Individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working solutions over extensive documentation, customer collaboration over negotiation, responding to change over following a fixed plan, right? So this is the core of the Agile Manifesto, and all of these principles that they noticed that are sort of more tangible manifestations of these values. These values and these principles lead us to a lot of practices that are sort of really doing the right things, that are communicating on a lot of different levels at the same time, but for the wrong reasons. Because as I've come to understand the manifesto, it's really sort of focused on this very practical space of, you know, getting shit done, reducing business risk, creating value, which are all very noble causes. However, they don't sort of fill the gap that I think what you're talking about is sort of pointing at, this gap in being, right? These, to use another frame of reference, right? Agile is really still based very much in this mechanistic view of the world. This sort of, you know, if you guys are familiar with spiral dynamics, this very orange, scientific, mechanistic, you know, take out one part, replace it with a better part view of the world, which is, I mean, relevant, but it doesn't encapture like the complexity of natural systems or living human systems, right? Where you can't just replace one part and optimize that part. You know, replacing that part and optimizing it might sub-optimize the entire ecosystem, the entire web of relationships that you're sort of touching and creating there. So I come to agility out of my desire for this more sort of complete connection, right? This ability to, I think it's been described by a lot of folks, to bring my whole self into the context, right? And with the sense of groundedness and security that's okay to be a full, dynamic, you know, flawed human being, and not have to sort of bullshit ourselves, right? So I'm right now in the middle of looking for work, and it's so tempting, the seduction to bullshit each other and go, oh yeah, well, I'm the perfect employee. Oh yes, I'm the perfect work, place to work. Oh, how great for us two perfect people to come get together and do perfect things. Which is just, it's just to step beyond that sort of paradigm of fear and scarcity is takes a lot of guts in some ways, right? You really got to put yourself out there and embrace the sense of vulnerability. So definitely I recognize this desire to, in some ways, slow down and make spaces for different ways of interacting that certainly feel weird in the sort of professional priming that we've had, right? In the professional space, in the professional career, like how many meetings at your workspace do you start off with, just an amount of time and space for silence in which nobody fills that space, and you're enabled to ground and come in. So definitely I recognize this sort of need and desire, that the practical application, how do we sort of get from where we are to where I think we want to go together. That's a big exploration, from I really enjoyed Liberating Structures as a sort of very holistic set of tools to enable at least much better practical conversations, right? I don't think they get us to the true, I haven't figured out how to use them in a truly liminal way, right? To create a transformation into something like orders of magnitude deeper. Even though they do that, right? I'm still looking for the way to get down to like baseline essence, like, can we connect this baseline essence, right? And then build practical applications on top of that. But I think to me, the only answer is a lot of experimentation, right? To try out what seems to be working, right? To sort of use this lycometer in your belly, right? This thing that makes you, do I like it? Do I dislike it? Right? That thing, right? To use the lycometer to just sort of navigate around and go, what sort of pulls me? In what directions am I pulled? Right? So, yeah. And then see what happens, so to speak, right? To run a test and see if it gets you, if following that thing gets you in a space where you like to be, and then, all right, more and more and more. And on the flip side, and this I think is the challenge that is fear, is, right, the lycometer also tells you not that way, right? It also says not that way, right? It's going this way, yes. That way, nah, no, right? So, but how do I use that information in a way in which really honors it, right? Because, to come back to the practical space of my job search, right? There's a strong pull in this way, but there's also this other thing that is not so much that way, but it's also got a lot of money attached to it, for example. And how do I go, yeah, but it's not that way, and it is this way. Oh, but all that money, right? So here we are already bringing in topic number 3, or where we want to talk about it, right? This relationship with money. So tell me more.
Yes. Oh, there's there you opened kind of 3 doors or 5 doors, and now I'm kind of in the to which shall I go? To which shall I go? Okay, so I just choose one, and then we see where we get to the point. So or to another point. I wanted to go. What is fascinating to me, and I've recognized that. I even have. No, I don't know whether this is culturally different. My memory tells me that this is even more in my home country that way. Like but it might be related to my bubble, and that this bubble has changed from where I came in Germany to here in the Netherlands, and that I become more selective in my bubble, like the older I become, in that sense. But what you said about professionalism, and this. That we have this professional world where you gave your example with regards to, you know, bullshitting around the application period or whatever, because you want to kind of create that image. I would say you want, like, both sides want to create that image that, oh, I'm good, I'm beautiful, I'm attractive, whatever. But deep down, you know, like, but this is not real, you know, this is just the surface.
Exactly. It's just a persona.
I know about your surface that this is the surface, and that there might be also other things underneath which are not so sparkly and shiny and great. And I know about that myself. And then you said something which, with regards to fear and vulnerability, and that I think that is a little bit, and this lycometer that you taught. And I think that maybe this is one key element, that at least this is how it feels, you know. Somewhere along the way in these past decades, centuries, I don't know what, we've been confusing vulnerability with, or maybe not even confusing, I guess that was a very right kind of, or one of the possible understandings, that vulnerability is dangerous. Because if, for just take the scenario, the possible scenario, I'm courageous enough to be vulnerable in front of you, who is my possible employer, or, I mean, if we go back, it would have been the landlord, or I don't know what, you know. So you have power because you are going to either give me money or something else that helps me to survive. And I think I want to create a deeper connection with you and kind of get to the real stuff, to the essence, how you call it, you know. And I'm daring to open up and be vulnerable. And now you, for whatever reason, because maybe you're afraid or you cannot go there for whatever reason, as the employer, the landlord, whatever, you're going to punish me. Now I have kind of taken off my turtle shell. So I'm here with my bare skin, and you leash out on me. So the next time this is going to happen, a similar situation, I might think about whether I'm vulnerable enough, you know, in order to open up. And we've come into, and there I'm like, I'm still puzzled. How could we get there? We've kind of, obviously, in our past, and is there a connection to patriarchy? I don't know, or I'm not sure. Maybe yes, maybe no, maybe it's more complex than I think. Is there the connection that we've been kind of punishing each other too much in the past for being open and vulnerable? So the default mode has become fear, and in fear, you know, I'm going to protect myself, I'm going to function as the little wheel in the whole mechanism, but I'm not going to fully show up as my whole human being, because I'm just too afraid that somebody's going to punish and hurt me for who I am, and use it to maybe have power over me, because now you know, like, the not shiny, sparkly side of me, and you can use that information against me, you know.
And then so it's so interesting that you bring this in, because I think when I look at this, I see two sort of different problems that are interacting in, you know, sort of emergent ways, right? So I see the problem of sort of let me go straight to it. So I also see the problem of being attached to the end result, if that makes any sense, right? So if I'm afraid in my interview, right? If I'm afraid, if I'm attached to this job, it's got to be this place. I want, you know, it's got to be this one, right? Then I'm, you know, I'm trying to hack my way into this space that that is literally sort of, in some ways, it may be we are reciprocally manipulating each other and ourselves, right? So let me get inside my shell, let me sort of chop off the rough edges and richness, so to speak, of myself, so that I can fit into this cog, into this space that is, you know, perfectly designed and manicured for, you know, this persona, this archetype, this this structure, and but it's also, I have to take responsibility to my desire to be so attached to getting that end result that I abandon those elements of myself, right? And that right, so I get that you're looking at it and go, oh yeah, I need this, I want this, and the sort of element of, I guess this is where sort of patriarchy, but more control and power sort of come into play. You can see that as, being punished for that vulnerability, but I can also look at it from a sort of perspective of sort of some element of deeper trust, that if I play to the deepest portion of myself, if I try to show up most transparently and just be who I as much of who I am as I dare to be, I may not fit into that space. And if I don't fit into that space, great, because then I'm going to show up there and I'm going to, and then I'm going to be me. And then they're going to go, wait a minute. No. That's it, right. I can also look at it as being really grateful that incompatibility, so to speak, reveals itself early, so that I can go, awesome, high five. You've got your reasons, you've got your, this is the thing that you're looking for. If that's the thing you're looking for, that's not going to satisfy that portion of me that I'm really, really, really committed to being satisfied. So good luck with your search. I'm going to keep it pushing, and, with the full trust that something's going to work out, and let's be honest, the Dutch have a really, really robust, social safety net. So I can to another degree dare to take that risk, because I'm not in such an immediate frame of scarcity, which kind of ties us back to this bigger concept of money, power, and that to me is this thing that unifies fear, power, and money together, which is this perspective of scarcity. Mm-hmm. When I say this stuff, what I see you nodding, what comes up for you?
I love that you bring in that thing of trust and self-trust, and I would maybe add enoughness.
Enoughness.
However, if we're not going to get this deal together, if we're not going to fit together, that's great. I am, even without that job, even without that income that's going to get from there, and I'm enough. I'm enough. And I've been we had a mastermind session yesterday that I was hosting, and we had the topic of giving and receiving, and that it's so hard for many of us it's harder for many of us to receive and feel okay with that than to give. And that plays into that whole topic that you were mentioning with power and money and all that kind of stuff as well, because for some of the reasons, and I think there's really some stuff that we need to also change in the way how we are raising our kids, is that, better, you should either deal, of course, I mean, if you're coming to that world, I need to kind of feed you as the mother, I'm breastfeeding you or whatever, and you're kind of dependent on me. But the moment the children go to kindergarten or to school, they are taught to kind of either ask, if at all, ask gently and politely, or to better shut up. Telling that you have needs and saying that you need something and that you would like to receive is nearly punished. Now, how can, if this is nearly punished already in such a fragile kind of high plasticity, I don't know whether this is whatever, lifetime, when you're already kind of getting this in this kind of notion, not asking, not receiving. If you are asking, you're obviously not enough for yourself and for the society. Now, there comes probably in the first step of scarcity, because I'm obviously not enough, shit. I either have to learn to deal with myself and to better shut up and not ask people for help and reach out and connect with others in order to know, or I see somebody else is going to be punished for doing that.
Mm.
So I learned that this needs to be punished. So I should later maybe also punish someone else who is asking. Yes. How is that connected to money? I think that's also connected to money, but maybe you can help me with that.
Yeah, so there's this, I think what you're sort of bringing in is the upside of conformity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, right? So I think more than anything, school is designed and engineered to create conformity, right? Whether it should be is a big question, right? You could look at it as education could be the way that we sort of pass information generationally from, I don't think we do a terribly great job of that. But we definitely do a really great job of creating conformity. So these are our expectations. I want the person that fits into this space. This is my expectations. You should conform to my expectation, right? Mm-hmm. And if you conform to my expectation, you'll be rewarded with gold stars and stickers and my love and affection and belonging to the group. And later. Money, most definitely, right? That definitely correlates to money. And if you don't conform to my expectations, then you'll be cast out of the group. You'll be punished. You'll have your liberties taken away. There's definitely a strong element of fear that I can see sort of involved in that process. And so it's funny that this sort of comes into the conversation because we've picked a school for my son. He's going to be 4 here in January, and this is my real like I hate the notion of sending him to school to be sort of socialized in this way. And I have a recognition that while we are, I think, justifiably on the sort of precipice or edge of some paradigm shift, this is an element of the game that that I think he'll have to learn. And I don't know if I'm a great teacher, right? I don't know if I'm a great teacher of, the upsides of conformity. So, yeah. But the relationship between conformity and scarcity and fear and money and power and authority and control is definitely there. There's definitely something in that space. So I think it's time to really like crack open this thing, especially around money, right? And I want to invite you to sort of to describe a little bit about what you have to bring in that.
In terms of money?
Yeah.
Well, I've been doing an online course on money and consciousness. I'm still doing it right now. And it's, so the basic thing that I'm learning, apart from that there's a module that explains how we actually created the money system and how it actually works and how money gets multiplied and all that kind of good stuff. But basically this course is very much focusing on what is your relationship with money and how it has served you in the past or how it has hampered you in the past actually, and how it's continuously hampering you if you're not aware of it. Because so what the basic assumption is that it's actually a neutral thing, it's either that little paper or it's some metal or it's just numbers that appear on our screens, and it's a very kind of, actually it's in that sense it's self-neutral. However, it is never neutral in our real life because it lives with the projections that we are having on it. And the projections are coming actually from very different places, and most of the time they come from our past, how we've been growing up, how our parents have taught us how to deal with money, but not only kind of the direct relationship with money, and here comes the kind of really tricky and sometimes shocking part, at least for me, into it is how you as a human being, as a small human being, as a young child, or your parents as very young children, and now kind of teaching you that to the next generation, have been perceiving their own value as human beings. So just to give you an example, if you, for example, as a child were not planned, you were an unwanted child, you have to, your parents are going to signal implicitly or explicitly to you that you were not wanted at one point, and they might not themselves not being really aware of that, but there's also, I come from psychology, my background is psychology, there are attachment theories, like, and there are secure attachments and there are insecure attachments, and in insecure attachments there are again kind of different variations in that. So in that, there is kind of the bond between especially mother and child, but it can be also between the father and child. If there has been threats, this is so dangerous and so traumatic for the child that it's going to kind of not deal with it, him or herself, especially when it's still young, but it's going to project it on something else. And the easiest to project that, because value is also connected to money. So I project this not being wanted, I'm going to project that on money. Money is dangerous. Money is not wanting me, or I don't want money. And this is going to affect also my relationship later in accumulating and saving and keeping money or spending money. And what basically, what I've been learning in that course, and maybe you should link it, it's a great, I can really recommend it. It's really kind of, it was a big eye opener for me also in terms of healing my own relationship, or kind of getting at least a better relationship with money in that sense, and a more aware relationship with money. It's, you have either kind of positive projections on money, which is money means freedom, money gives me opportunities, money means participation, money means maybe also power. Or you have rather negative projections on it, which is money corrupts people, people with money are corrupt, or people with money are not caring about the rest of the world, or they're kind of exploiting or whatever, you know. So, and there are some of us who have either or, and many of us have mixed projections on it, based on either our own experiences earlier. For example, whenever we talked about money, that's one projection that I realized I had. Money is dangerous in the sense, and it's threatening the relationship. So I had, because of, I was born shortly after the wall came down, and there was quite a big economic crisis for a lot of families which were in the east of Germany, and my parents were part of it. They lost both of their jobs. So money, even though they tried to keep it from us, but whenever money entered the conversation, there was a tension, and I could feel that. And I could feel that money was kind of destroying the harmony in our conversations.
Right.
So money was for me something that was dangerous, not to be talked about, so it became a taboo. If I'm asking for money, this is making my primary kind of connections, like to my family, that's putting them in danger for some extent. That's what I got. So better not ask for money. And number three, there are people who have much more money than we have, and I don't understand the reason, and they must be bad. So
they're not like us.
Or they're not like us. And at the same time, I know I need money. We need money to survive, and money is, there we are again, scarce. At least in that period, it was scarce for us, and that translated into something that I still carried along with me. So and how is that connection to power and everything? Well, I guess it's or actually vulnerability. You know, I think we, especially as young children, if we feel that when we are putting something up and we are putting the relationship in danger with the ones that are responsible or that are caring for us and that we are dependent on, who have actually real power over us. They have, because if my mother is not going to keep on kind of putting the breakfast on the table, I'll have a problem. If that is the message that we kind of get passed on, or that we pass on to our children, this topic, because I am afraid also as an adult, as the parent or as whoever in the society, if that topic is taboo because I am afraid, we're going to pass that on. So actually, I think it's doing what we're doing right now is so important right now, because I mean, if we still go with the psychology, there's still an inner child in us.
Yep.
You know, we all have these not fully healed or still wounded parts of us that that come from our childhood. So if we kind of do not care for each other and care for ourselves to create that safe space where we can talk about it, we are going to transport that from one generation to the next one, with regards to money, with regards to power, with regards to fear, whatever, you know?
And we're talking about intergenerational trauma, right? Yeah.
Say so.
So yeah. So the most resonant thing that is really with me is out of everything you sort of brought in is really that this recognition that, you know, that money is actually a really interesting mirror for my relationship with myself in some ways, right? This beautiful synthesis between value and you know, my sense of value in myself, right? Because money, I mean, it's funny, right? It's just a social technology, right? It's just a tool, and yet it's a very seems to be a very fraught relationship. And scarcity, right? Scarcity is definitely in there. I think so. One of the things, like I said, the reason scarcity sort of ties these things together is because I remember the first day of economics, right? 101, right? Human wants are unlimited and resources are limited. So bam, like first day out of the gate, scarcity is there with you, right? So this is if you want to talk about paradigm shifts, right? So this is the underlying proposition, the supposition that all economic theory and finance is sort of based on, which is scarcity, right? Unlimited wants, limited resources. How do we make, and thus the drive for efficient use of this scarce thing, right? Which is, on one hand, like legitimate and a good solid science, because sometimes it is true. And yet when we think about the sort of factors of production, you know, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, like entrepreneurship has no limitation, right? There is like zero upper bound, other than the psychology of an individual and how that scales to culture, but there is no limitation on entrepreneurship, right? Especially when you start to think about entrepreneurship in the way of serving each other, right? Which is what we're sort of coming towards, right? As the physical wants are sort of taken care of, for lack of a better word. We've got the machinery to do those things, maybe not in sustainable manners, but we've got the technology exists to put food on the table, ship it across the planet, you know, and you know, everybody's living in the house, so to speak. That stuff, the resources are out there. Entrepreneurship in the sense of serving each other. How can I be of service of you? Like there's an infinite amount of ways that I can be of service to you and everyone else out there. So that to me sort of nukes this idea of scarcity and sort of undermines it in a pretty meaningful way. You know, especially if we want to talk about the sort of digitization of the world and data, and you know, sure, we make use of these things based on this paradigm that is scarcity. So let me be a Google and a Facebook, you know, or an Amazon, let me hoard as much data as I can because there's not enough data. And if I give you my data, I might, you know, you might get it and, you know, make better use of it than I can. So let me create my little walled garden. But again, this stuff is abundant. So the shift from scarcity to abundance really has a big opportunity to sort of rewrite a lot of the ways that we relate to each other and the world, right? And if I can recognize some sense that I'm in an abundant and creative universe, right? That it's always coming up with new structures, right? I was listening to this talk earlier where they were talking about negative entropy, right? So entropy, this concept of, closed system devolves into chaos, but we live in an open system, which is not devolving into chaos, but actually creating continuously more and more rich forms of complexity. So that shift from a scarce space to an abundant space is definitely going to rewrite the rules, right? And then we come to this idea that I've thought of as managing abundance. So, all right, so if there is abundance in the world, it doesn't change everything, but it does, because then how do we make sure everybody gets what they sort of want and need, which sounds a lot like the same thing, but that underlying supposition being so different just fundamentally shifts the ways. It's like, oh no, there's plenty. So how do I make sure that, how do I act as a link in that mechanism to make sure you get what you need, what you want and need? Because there's it should just be able to flow through me because there's plenty of around here. Let me just make sure you can get some. I've got plenty access, here, have another. You hungry? You need to eat, right? I don't know where I'm going with that. I kind of ran out of steam. So
No. It's fantastic. It's great, and I think it brings us a little bit to a more also, which I like, because I mean we've been out in scarcity, power, all these negative things. It's like,
yeah,
but it's actually I'm with you. Let's shift the focus. Because it's basically, if I'm thinking more about scarcity, and I think it's important to get behind it, and what you said in the very beginning, to get to the root cause. But then once we've come to the root cause, and I think it's we've kind of tackled it partially, like not fully, but we really got to that, which is kind of this trust and trusting yourself and being enough, this thing, and how we can actually help each other to do that. Like, how can we implement that in our everyday life with either educating our children or with Agile, whatever, Appreciative Inquiry, however you want to call them, when we get to that point that we actually do not also bullshit each other about the needs we have, because I mean, this is one of the other things that, I know about your needs, and I know actually about the deeper needs, but I'm going to redirect your deeper needs, which are all having to do with, of course, they're basic things like I need food, yeah? But most of in our Western world, it's not about the food. It's about the real connection. It's about understanding my purpose. It's about kind of whatever, and
it's about being, right?
It's about
it's
being.
Not about having.
Exactly. And we are redirecting it in very often with the products we sell. Like if you look at the marketing on Instagram, but also in the television or on YouTube, whatever, we redirect these wishes and needs into a materialized thing, into something that we can have. No. Let's stop bullshitting about that, and let's just sit with each other and give each other. And that, I guess, at this moment is also something. That's another thing that we think is scarce, but it's bullshit that this is scarce. We create a system maybe for ourselves that this is scarce. That's time. Time for yourself, time with each other. That is not spent in doing, but just in being.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, so I'm going to quote one of my, this is so weird for me on a meta level, right? I love to consider myself an independent thinker, right? And I've just recently tapped into such a vein of goodness that I now, it seems like I have a guru, and it's so weird for me, right? So I'm going to quote him, right? I'm going to quote him, them, right? So John Vervaeke sort of talks about this modal confusion, this confusion between the having mode and the being mode. And who is it? Jordan Hall also talks about this relationship between the state, the market, and the absent space that is the commons, sort of in between them, right? So the market and the state can't help us solve the problems or desires of the being mode, and the commons can, so to speak, this space for things to just literally be, and to be resources that are available to all of us, right? You know, this idea that I think you're bringing into with time, right? To just be together in sort of non-productive ways, like actually are deeply, deeply satisfying, right? And to, you know, just like the check-in at the beginning of this space, to just reserve time and space and create some way of preserving those things so that we can all enjoy them, right? It's funny because I wanted to say make use of them, but that's exactly the opposite. It's not making use of them. It's just literally enjoying them, right? So I can definitely sort of map that onto sort of what you're describing, right? This space to just be together, right? And to be, period. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That feels like a very nice kind of final statement. I don't know how that feels for you.
Yeah, I think it's rock solid. I think there's always more to say and more to explore, but I like that. I've really enjoyed, you know, this time to just sort of be with you, Vera. Thank you so much.
Yes, likewise.
Um,
Likewise.
yeah, before I press the stop recording button, do you tell us a little bit more about what you're on about with your new venture, and give everybody a plug out there?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the space you give me in that sense. So at that time, I have a few things running. Like there's an online course that I've been designing about appreciative inquiry. There are principles about that. And I connected them because a few people were curious, what is this actually? What is appreciative inquiry? What's that approach or that method or that way of being, or however you want to call that? What is it? Yeah. And I tied that to actually a few topics about personal leadership and ownership of your own story. So this course is called The Power of Our Stories, and we actually go through the 6 classic principles of appreciative inquiry and kind of ask ourselves, so what are the concepts, what are the constructs with which I've been running, and do I still want to run, or do I maybe want to also let them go or change them, or let them stay parallel with each other, and what are the questions that I'm asking myself, and how can I kind of influence by asking other questions or more questions. Oh, hello.
It must be time to go, because
it must be time to go. Exactly.
Come to dominate the space.
Yes, I see that. Yeah. So we're exploring actually the topics of how can I kind of own and maybe write a new ending to my own story, in that sense that really serves me and the way how I want to be in the world.
Awesome. And where can folks find more information about this?
Well, you could tie it to that little text that's coming with that video, but you can also go to my website, that is www.daretoimagine.today.
All right.
And there under events, you can find the course. Or if you scroll a little bit down in my it's to be seen on my website. Dope. And in end of January, beginning February, we're actually going to open again the doors for our Mastermind for Positive Change that I'm organizing together with a dear friend and colleague, Gwendol Kusters.
Cool. Awesome. Also on the website?
Also on the website.
All right, cool. Well, what was that? Dare to
Imagine altogether.today.
Dare to imagine.today. All right, you know where to find her, folks. This is my friend Vera. My name's Jeremy. Thanks so much for your time, attention, and energy.
Thank you. Yes.
Be good to yourself here. Oh yeah, my plug for Frame. All right, so I keep inviting people to share some specific moment, right, when they had a thought a sensation or some form of feeling, right? Any moment, and stamp that with a little comment, right, on the video. I wonder if somebody's going to do that. So, yeah, cool, awesome. That was dope, V. Thanks so much.
Is it recording?
Yeah, it's still recording. Like, I'll just clip it.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, you might say something brilliant that I just have to have, right? There's my scarcity kicking in, right?
Yeah. Nice. Okay.